Welcome back on the AM show. And after all that talk about the energy sector, let's focus on levies and taxation. Generally, that's how we raise money for our economy. But are we overdoing it? Are we taxing ordinary Ghanaians into the ground, as some have suggested? Well, the minority in parliament has said that it is not going to support the 3 new revenue bills that are going to be tabled on the floor of parliament. And they have numbers, but it's left to the majority to be able to counter their numbers with that majority position. I'm talking about the income tax, growth sustainability, and excise duty bills, which are to be tabled before Parliament. Well, joining us for that conversation, we have a number of economic watchers, experts, importers, and exporters. But for now, we are joined by Eric Amponsah-Boateng, a tax expert. Mr. Boateng, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
Let's start with your comprehension of these 3 bills that are to be put before Parliament. Some have suggested that these are just going to exacerbate the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian. But let's start from an understanding of what these levies and taxes really are. When we talk about the excise duty bills, when we talk about the growth and sustainability bills, when we talk about the income tax bill, what exactly are they pointing at in our revenue generation?
Okay. I think that as a nation, basically, if we have a budget, and we expect that we'll be able to support the budget, which means that we should be able to mobilize the revenue to be able to do that. And so we must bear that in mind. I think that based on what is happening in the country and the fact that we've had to go to the IMF, we have to meet certain requirements.
Right.
And so we really do not have a choice. But I would say that.
Are you suggesting our hands are tied, that there's nothing else we can do apart from impose these taxes and levies on the ordinary Ghanaian?
Okay. What I would say is that I think that we have other measures. In my opinion, there are other measures that we could have put in place and not necessarily introducing these new taxes.
Okay.
Because you will agree with me, from January this year, the VAT Act was amended.
Right.
And it is now 15%.
Exactly.
Okay. And already businessmen, businesswomen, institutions are everybody's complaining. Okay, so what it means is that your price is going to be high. And when your price is high, you will agree with me that nobody would want to buy from you.
Right.
And what happens is that people are now going to do what we do not expect them to do. For example, I know.
And we've seen some of that. Some people, even at the major outlets, trying to avoid, these taxes.
So what is happening is that the VAT is not even standardized. Okay, and so if I want to buy a phone, let me give this example.
Right.
If I want to buy a phone, I can just drive to Circle, okay, and buy the phone. I do not pay any VAT on it. And so even for those who were or who are retailers and they were on the flat rate, because of the amendment of the VAT Act, which said that if your turnover for a year is more than 500,000 Ghana cedis, automatically you should switch from the flat rate to the standard rate. And so already those retailers were suffering. Okay, and now from January this year, you've had to increase the VAT by 2.5%. And so already businesses are suffering. And then you are adding up I think that we could have put in other measures instead of introducing these new taxes.
All right. So right before I move on to
Yes.
my other guests, very quickly, you say they could have roped in other measures rather than bring in these new taxes, as you call them. Which other measures? Just briefly on that. What are the alternatives?
All right. First of all, we need to ensure that we bring in those who are not in the tax net. Okay.
Isn't
If
that a
you look
horse
at,
we've flogged, over flogged? I
yes,
mean, we keep
all over,
talking
yes,
about it.
but yes, yes, because if you look at our tax to GDP, it is about 12.5%. But if you take sub-Saharan Africa, it is
Right.
about 22%. What it means is that a lot more persons are not paying their taxes. And so if government were to look at that, okay, I don't think that there will be the need to bring in these new ones. Because
Okay.
I see at the end of the day, what is going to happen is that these businesses, if you're not careful, they become very uncompetitive. Okay, and therefore they tend to lose out on the market. And when that happens, it means that eventually they are going to collapse. So
Okay.
I will ask us all: is it better for these businesses to be in operation and at least even pay the corporate taxes, the PAYE, the withholding, and all that, instead of them folding up, where we will lose virtually everything? The other thing that I think that we need to do is to ensure tax compliance. And
Right.
I think that, yes, of late the GRA has done well, but I think there's a lot more that they can do. The education is not there. And then you look at some of the taxes, in my opinion, the rates are a bit on the high side. And when your tax rates are high, most people will definitely not comply.
Right.
So
So thank you. At least these alternatives exist. Let me also bring in the Dean of the University of Cape Coast, the University of Cape Coast School of Business, Professor John Gachi. And let me say a good morning to Samson Asaki Awingobit on phone. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. Hold for me, Samson. Prof, so briefly, when you look at these three, we're talking about the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Stamp Amendment Bills, as well as the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill. What do you make of these three bills that are going to be tabled on the floor of Parliament? You heard my initial guest, Eric Boateng, make the point that there are alternatives that we could have used. Are you in agreement with him?
Well, I do agree with him largely. And I also want to add that we want to raise revenue. But if you just focus on raising revenue without paying attention to the effect that the mode of raising revenue will have on your citizens, on your businesses, the competitiveness of your businesses with other businesses, especially within the sub-region, then you got it wrong. I say so because if you look at the category of people that the stabilization levy is going to be levied on, you see the category A, you see banks there, banks, financial institution, insurance company, telecommunication, in that order, up to electronic money transfer, shipping companies, etc. Number one, is it not the same government that is telling us the effect that the debt exchange program will have on the banks, that some of them will lose capital, some of them will have liquidity challenges, some of them may not be strong? So why from 5%, imposing 5% on the profit of these banks before tax, then after that, the real corporate tax will apply? What will be the effect on the banks? So the businesses that are producing your taxes, you are overstressing them, and perhaps some of them will collapse, or perhaps it will create an uneasy ground for them.
So you foresee that these three, if they pass through, would just add more strain on these already suffering businesses. That's your point.
Exactly so. Exactly so. And if you go to category C, it seems to me that no institution or no business is left out, because category C say all other entities not falling within category A and B, they are supposed to pay 2.5% of profit before tax. So it's like no business is left out. So is it not the same business who are going to collect VAT on their activities and pass on to consumers? So benchmark value, is it not affecting the shipping companies, and then for that matter have effect on pricing? So I believe we seem to just be chasing revenue without recourse to the effect that it's having on the entities and the viability of the entities to continue to contribute to the tax revenue. And I would not be surprised to see a large chunk of default in terms of payment of taxes. Because when the tax rate and then the multiplicity of taxes occur, that creates an incentive for default.
Have we got to the point of, would you call it, over taxation? You, the economists, say that if you tax businesses into the ground or ordinary people into the ground, it means that you're going to create systemic flow problems. Have we got to that point where, on the back of all the taxes, the levies from COVID-19, and we're still paying for that when you make purchases, to the GET Fund, to NIA, NHI, and all of that, all of these levies that we keep paying, in addition to the increment in VAT, you've made mention of the benchmark values, and now these three that have been tabled, have we got to the point where we are, or the government is over-taxing businesses? And could this have a negative spin-off effect?
Well, I think that is largely true. If you recall, the key members of this government were complaining about taxes when these taxes were not available. Then they have brought all these tax increments and new taxes coming on board. What do you call that? I think we have now moved from actual production to taxation. All we need to do now is to be taxing. That's what we are doing, and it's not well. It's not good for the economy. So they are betting, but as to whether to determine that they are really overburdened, we need to compare the burdensome taxes we're talking about with what we are realizing. If you go to Nordic countries, Sweden, Finland, and co, yes, the tax rates are very high, but that is why they can see efficient rail line. That is why they can see efficient public transport system. That is why they can see efficient delivery of public services to the people. Over here, we don't have that. So what is the essence of these burdensome taxes on businesses and individuals? That is the question we need to be asking ourselves. Should we allow ourselves to be taxed over and over and over and again, and then we will not get the benefit that comes with taxation? I think it's problematic.
Hold for me, Prof. Interesting initial thoughts that you have shared. For you, Samson Asaki Awingobit, you are Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association. What's your initial reaction to these three new levies, taxes that are put to, or are meant to be put before Parliament for consideration? And what do you foresee would be the impact of saying? Also add to that, do you feel at this point that the business community is getting overtaxed?
Very big good morning to your chairs, viewers, and listeners, and a very big good morning to my colleagues, the panel, Professor Gachi and Eric, for joining us this morning. I must say that from the two speakers, I will not depart away from what they have said. What I can only add is that the government have lost its relevance so far as it comes to policy and policy direction or policy framework. The government of the day has lost its relevance. It's no more in touch with the people. It doesn't know how business community are feeling, and all ideas or innovations are just throwing at everybody. And that is the worrisome situation we find ourselves. That the government that touted that they were going to move business community from taxation to production, they were not coming to cripple business community, end up crippling the business community in this country. I want Professor Gachi and the tax expert, Mr. Eric, to help me out. How many times would one commodity should be taxed? They are tax experts. You go to the port, you are paying the duty, import duty, you are paying VAT, you are paying get fund, you are paying health insurance, you are paying COVID levy, you are paying financial recovery levy. You go to the market, you are going to sell same product, you are paying VAT, you are paying COVID levy, you are paying health insurance, you are paying get funds. Then another person, that is from a wholesaler to a retailer, before you get to the final consumer will also pay same commodity. This is how the tax system is working in this country. I don't know where our finance minister, and I don't know who is advising the government in terms of taxes. And I know every minister only have a technical person who will advise. Before they will do so, they will go on monitoring. They will understand how the Ghanaians are feeling. They will see how businesses are growing or expanding. Then you can come to talk about introducing taxes.
We don't have the luxury of doing all of that because these three are supposed to help us scale the hurdle of securing an IMF deal. You do realize these are not normal times.
I totally reject if this is the kind of lazy approach. I am not quite sure that if you go to the relief that the IMF is asking Ghana to present before them so that it will help us to secure the $3 billion loan or facility that they want to give to Ghana. I am not quite sure IMF is asking the same government that go back and cripple your business community and come, or put them to prison and come before I give.
They are saying go back and ensure that your debt, among others, reach sustainable levels. These are some of the ways of getting to that end.
And I am sorry, then just let us go down on our own. This is not the way IMF will want to treat people of Ghana. I am completely very flabbergasted. I am disappointed. And I strongly believe that in all the three bills laid in Parliament now have been totally rejected. And that is why my outfit is asking the members, the revered members of Parliament, both the minority and the majority, to totally reject this approach of taxes that government wants to impose on. You are telling people that you will tax them 5% profit before tax. You are saying that the current dispensation, and I'm quite sure this morning you're picking a bottle of water because you are moderating the program. I'm sure you know how much it costs. If this income accessible duty tax from 10% to 20% that the government is asking, what it means is that the government is no longer concerned about the ordinary Ghanaian, whether you want to buy a Fanta and put your child back so that you can go to school. And of course, even when we're children, in the morning when you wake up, you are crying, you don't want to go to school. Definitely your father or your mother wants to buy something to deceive you so that they can pamper you to go to school, isn't it? So all accessible products, carbonated water, fun, canned coke, canned malt, spirit, wine, are all. Already the cost of these prices, consumers are complaining, as your two speakers already said, Professor Gachi and the tax expert, Mr. Eric, also said these things. We strongly believe that this is not the way to go, and we expect Parliament to do so. In fact, parliamentarians are in Parliament because among the community in which you live, the constituency in which you live, the people have trust in you, the people know that, the constituency knows that if you go, their burden is your burden. And so you transfer their burden. You go and speak the language that if they have the opportunity, they will speak. And that is why we are saying that if you go to the market, the prices of goods that we see in the market do not have MPP or NDC color. And so it shouldn't be only NDC that is asking the members of parliament to vote against it. But if I'm a constituent, as I speak this morning, I want to appeal to every constituent. If you know you have your member of parliament in parliament today, pick a phone and call that person and say, if this bill come before you, the income tax amendment bill, the accessible duty amendment bill, please vote no, vote against it. Don't vote yes, because it's affecting me. If I go to market, what is the prevailing prices Ghanaians are crying? Let alone if prices will have to go up. And I can tell you, I use my last question to tell you, if Parliament goes ahead, I heard my colleague, my very good friend, Andrew Messier, have I called the name proper? The Deputy Minister of Energy, was saying that
Andre Japamesa, right?
Yes, he was asking Parliament to his colleagues from the majority to make sure that they come and then they pass the bill. It's good. It will help the country. And it will help the country, but it will kill the industry. It will help the country. The company will fall up if they pass this bill into law. It will help the country. The company will downsize staff. They will lay off workers. The existing unemployment rate in the country today. If this government is very sensitive, government should rather ask the business community to plow this 5% they intend to take it from them back to the business and expand and employ the immediate. I am sure
so that's some perspective you're giving the conversation. Instead of taxing you further, they should rather incentivize the business community to even give employment to other people. But it's easier said than done to say that. It's very easy to say, don't tax us further. Don't do this, don't do that. When government has said that if we don't implement some of these moves, the whole effect on all of us, on our economy, the shocks are going to affect the same business community. But I'll ask you, just as I asked the initial speakers, what would your alternatives be? You're saying let's not do this. What are your alternatives?
I want to believe that government should rather give us a moratorium. Government should let business...
A moratorium on what?
Government should let business community come back. Its feet. As to stand now, every organization, every business is on its knees to collapse.
I want clarity. I want clarity. A moratorium on...
Like government is saying they are on its knees.
Samson.
By the end of the March, if IMF do not approve the bill, Ghana will collapse. Same thing that we expect government that please give us this period. Let us come back. Businesses are frustrated. In 2022, end of year, a lot of businesses couldn't rake anything. And we are just in first quarter of the year. And you've already slap 2% VAT. That cut across. In the pot, it's now 50%. Plus, just fund health insurance is increasing our cost of doing business in the pot. In the market, too, it's introduced same taxes components in the market. And in my intro, I need to understand how many times would one pay per a product? How many times should government account tax? For those, Professor Gachi and the gentleman, Mr. Eric, are all tax experts or are all financial experts. Can they tell me, per one commodity, one mobile phone, I pay tax at the airport, VAT, get funds, health insurance, financial recovery levy, whatever, all in, I am going to sell it to a wholesaler. I have to invoice the same thing. Wholesaler is going to invoice it to a retailer. Before I get to the final consumer, at how many times? I strongly believe that this is not the right time to talk about if this 3 bill doesn't go through, then IMF will not give it the money. I'm not quite sure IMF is threatening Ghana that if you don't get this bill go through, we will not give it.
Samson, point made, but just to clarify, you made a point that the business community rather should be given some sort of moratorium on taxes. Which taxes? The 3 that are yet to be confirmed by Parliament, made into law, or which taxes specifically are you referencing?
Yes, these the 3. What I'm saying that point corrected. It is only moratorium when it becomes a law.
Okay,
but
all right.
Now it's coming. It's yet to be law. We are saying that they can put on hold until it. Parliament should put on hold it. That's what we are calling for. Because as soon as they pass this bill to law, the president is ready to sign, because he said he was eager, and he said he described it as very important bill. We are describing it as very killer bill if MP goes ahead to approve this bill.
Now, if you look at our VAT standing at about 15%, and you look at collections by way of GDP, you would realize that we're getting around, I believe one of you mentioned, just about 12%, while in the sub-region, or at least in many neighboring countries, we're looking at about 22%, that is revenue or taxation to its contribution to GDP. The passage of these bills into law, it has been touted that they would increase tax to GDP from about 13%, as has been mentioned, 12 point something percent, to 18%. I'll ask you, Mr. Boateng, is that not a good thing? And does that not mean that willy-nilly, like it or not, some way, somehow, we have to find a way of implementing these taxes?
I think losing sight of the fact that, yes, we need to be able to raise the revenue, but we should ask ourselves, in trying to do that, is it going to help our businesses to grow and expand the GDP? We are also looking at even the fact that we also have to look at the expenditure side, because if you're able to rake in so much revenue and you probably don't spend the money well, at the end of the day, you're going to go back to square one. Yes, those who are saying that when we implement these new taxes, it's going to raise the tax to GDP ratio from the 12.5 to about 18%. My question to them is that the only way out? No, I don't think that is the only way out. Of the three, there's only one that I'll go for it, which is the one on the excise duty, because at least, first of all, it's going to help us to be able to at least keep the foreign exchange that we would have used to import those wines and bottled mineral water and all of that. Secondly, because those people are going to bring them in, if the tax rate is high, I think that, well, they're going to rake in the needed revenue. And at the same time, it's also going to ensure that even those who go into smoking of those cigarettes that we deem harmful, and that is even affecting us in terms of our health. So for the three, I'll probably go in for this one. But I'm saying that for the others, the other two, I don't think that we have to introduce them now, because there are alternatives, which I have mentioned. One of them is even to ensure that the loopholes, as we speak, there are some loopholes in the tax laws. I cannot sit here on TV and then mention all of them. If you're able to plug these loopholes and also even ensure that those who generate the revenue, the processes and the procedures, there is no room for any officer to be able to probably divert some of the revenue into his or her pocket. I believe that we really can increase it. Look, just last week, we are hearing that government is going to bring aboard the road, the tolls. And I have said it over and over again that if we bring them back and we do not automate them, then I think it's even better that we leave them as they are. Because I remember when the automation was done, the revenue was more than twice. Okay, and so these are other measures that we can put in place instead of saying that at all costs we must introduce these new ones. So that is what I would say. Finally, we always say that we want to ensure the growth of the economy. I remember a few years back, you remember we had the National Reconstruction Levy. And in that law, we expected it to last for probably 4 or 5 years. When that period ended, then they introduced the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy. And this one that we have, which is going to end in 2025, I can bet that even after 2025, it will remain there till probably, I don't know when. So the point that I'm making is that, yes, we have to rake in the revenue, but I don't agree that we have to introduce these, probably the only one that I will agree with is the one on the excise duty. And I think I've given you the reason. But the other two, I don't think that it's the right time to introduce them. Because if you look at the rippling effect on the businesses and ultimately the nation, what it means is that if some of these businesses go down, employees would have to be laid off. But I believe that at the stage that we have reached, we rather need to encourage those businesses to be able to grow, to be able to expand, create employment. And at the end of the day, whatever tax revenue that we expect to get, I believe that we will even get more than what we need.
Okay.
And so that is what I'll say.
All right. Do hold for me. You made an important point that I was going to throw into the gauntlet for all of you. It had to do with this measure, for example, the Growth and Sustainability Levy, which is only supposed to apply all the way till 2025. But I'll get to that later. Prof, I want, Professor Gachi, for you to look at this. It has been mentioned by the Finance Ministry that these new taxes will enable us complete 4 out of 5 agreed prior actions in the SLA, the staff level agreement. Then there's also talk about these being crucial for our economic recovery from this crisis. Do you disagree with that point? And I would also like you to add, is there any one of these taxes that you feel if you had to pick one out of the 3, you would go for? Would you also go for the excise tax? So those 2 questions.
Okay, thank you. The excise tax, I think it is explained as though it's going to create space and environment for production. But the idea is just to raise revenue. And I believe people have their choices. I do agree that things like cigarettes and those harmful products, when you put taxes on it, it limits the consumption, etc.
Right.
But the purpose of the excise duties is just to raise revenue. It's not to create an environment for production. And that is the reason why I don't think we need that. What we need now, what to incentivize production. See, you cannot be dealing with an economic crisis where you focus on only the fiscal measures without providing the space to ignite production. So when you do that, the problem will not be resolved. Remember, you will get to a point you will be comparing your numbers with your GDP. It is production that will generate the GDP. And so far, I've not seen the production aspect of solving our problem. So we can use taxes as an incentive, and we can use taxes as a way of raising revenue. We need to balance that out, and I don't see the balancing out in the measures that have been put in place. I am aware that the fiscal stability levy is going to further affect negatively the books of our banks, the books of our telcos, the books of money transfer companies, etc. It's going to bring a lot of transfer of this burden to the consumers. So I don't see why we should continue to engage in this kind of taxes that we are talking about. So I'm not encouraged by that. I would not support that. I think we can do better than what we are doing currently.
Let's look at the promise that, look, for some of these, they are only temporary measures. Let's look at the Growth and Sustainability Levy, for example. It will apply all the way to 2025. We're still being levied for COVID-19. And many people will tell you the COVID-19 bit is practically, in fact, I think the World Health Organization has been considering removing that status that it has had as a pandemic and considering it something like the recurrent annual flus that we have every year. Yet we're still being taxed for it. If you go to the Get Fund levy, for example, we are taxed for it. A lot of the sums of money. In fact, this year, less than 40% of what is taken from you and from me, from ordinary Ghanaians, when we make purchases, when we go and eat in certain places, it will not go into the GET fund. So it gets some of us wondering, can we trust government when it says this is only going to be a temporary measure? Because we've seen temporary become almost permanent. What's your take?
Well, you have just answered the question. We talk about a form of stability levy in the past. It was reintroduced. They have sunset clauses, which ordinarily give the impression that, oh, I just need it for just 3 years. After that, I will scrap it. But what we see is that after the end of the period, it is being repackaged in another name, or it's being repeated in the same name, just as we are seeing this growth and so and so thing that we are talking about. It's just the same thing. So the history doesn't show that we actually exit when the maturity or the expiring date comes. So I'm not sure we can trust government about that. And again, when you are talking about taxes, the moment the tax is established and you can gauge the revenue that is bringing, it becomes very difficult to put it away. And that is what is actually disturbing our government.
Let me bring in Samson now, especially from the importers and exporters end. When you look at these two bills, and in the end, I also want you to tell me, if you had the choice, which one of the three would you pick? But before that, when you look at the Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, the object is to revise the excise tax rates for cigarettes and other tobacco products to conform with the ECOWAS protocols and raise revenue to mitigate the harmful effects of these excisable products. It's a step in the right direction, right? Then you look at the Growth and Sustainability Levy, which is to raise revenue for growth and fiscal sustainability of the economy, especially when you look at the excise duty on cigarettes and tobacco products. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, thank you very much. To answer that one, let me just add where Professor Gatti just left. Are you aware that there was this tax called Special Import Levy, 1% and 2%? When the government came in first year, 2017, the government abolished the 1% and brought it back as a COVID levy. Okay? Then two, do you know that the 2% special levy is still running? Meanwhile, this was a sunset clause. It was asked for extension in 2017. 2018, it was asked for extension. Up to this, as I speak with you, the 2% special levy is still running in our books. So yes, we cannot believe, we don't trust the government again, because the government will sit A in the morning and sit B in the evening. And so I cannot, and I, my group, all does not trust the government anymore. That the government will promise us this and that. I'm dwelling on something. This first slide that you just read, or this first paragraph that you just read concerning the excise taxes, you see that you hammered on cigarettes and other tobacco products, isn't it?
Right.
But
the excise duty taxes,
let them get
or the excise duty, so to
let
speak.
Let them get this bill go through. You will see that the carbureted range, and everything that I've mentioned, the water and other things, all will be added on. And so look at them, read their lips. They will tell you this. I mean, what didn't the finance minister told us? You will not go to IMF. Is you know the one in IMF today? He told us E-level was the panacea. Even national budget, we do not see finance minister spending money to go to town hall meetings. But E-levy, finance minister went to town hall meetings. We account to us how much was spent on the town hall meeting and how much has been accrued. They spent more than even what was accrued. So this finance minister, I don't trust him today. I don't trust him tomorrow. He said A and do B.
If you had to choose,
the finance minister promised us that they were going to give us, before total reversal of benchmark values, they were going to set up an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee will see to it when they were reversing the rest of the percentage. They did not. That ad hoc committee was never and ever set up between we, the business committee, and the finance minister. So I don't trust the finance minister. This is the second time I'm telling you this. So if you ask me which tax I will choose among the three, I am saying all the three tax should put on hold now. They should not go through the bill let alone passing it for the president.
But let me push you. If you were told 3 versus 1, we either slap you with the 3 or you choose 1. Which one would you choose?
The business community are already sophisticated on excise duty taxes.
Right.
It's not a new tax that we are talking about.
Right.
They are upping it. They are increasing the rate of it. The new tax which is there is the only 5% profit before tax. That's the new. But
all right.
The other tax, it is not new. It is already there.
I guess
whether manufacturers or importers, they are already paying excise duty. So, my brother, it's not something that they now want to introduce, and we are raising red flags. And we are being responsible. We do not want to sit aloof, allow Parliament to go through and pass this bill for it to become law. And when GRA now wants to implement, then GRA will come to us that they want to engage us. And when we are raising the red flags, then they will tell us that they are just implemented, they are not policymakers. Hence, we are saying that the people who have the right, other than that, business community, those who will be able to cope with it, assuming without admitting that it be passed to bill today, and the president signed it, and GRA is implementing it. What is going to happen is that the current cost of goods in the market now will have to go up by those 30%. The 20% that the government intends to do, and the 5% that the government intends to introduce on the sustainable, the growth levy, or whatever the growth sustainable, whatever that is determined. I am saying that enough is enough. I don't think that is the only way to get IMF approve our credit facility for us. There are other modes and other means that vehicle that they can use. This vehicle, the government goofed big time. And that is why we are being responsible today. We are raising the issue because if you go to the market, you do not know, we do not have empty market, we do not have empty market. We have one market, common market. You go there, I go there, Professor Gaji goes there, Professor Boateng goes there. All of us, we go to that same market, and we know the prices of goods, and we know how the needs are complaining. As we speak, the exchange rate is still a problem to us. Inflation, 52 or 50. Should we knock our chest and say government has done well? No. Go to port. The rate at which importers are paying duty. You think we are happy? Total reversal of minimum values has shot up duties, and because of that, many importers have diverted their cargo to Africa and Lobe, and our port is empty. Are we happy about that? Right. I don't think so.
Right.
The government will have to set up.
And these are points that have been made. I remember you making that specific point about the diversion of imports, from different ports or to different ports from our own, and what that would mean in terms of revenue losses as well. One thing is clear: there is a thread that if we had to implement this, at least the commonality or the agreement would be that we go for the excise duty, but the rest would not be on the table. But Samson, just to clarify, you've also made it clear that you do not want either one of them or any one of them on board, because already the business community is heavily burdened. Before I take your final comments, gentlemen, I'd like to find out from you. So where are we now on the trajectory? Because mind you, the vice president, and when this administration started, the economic management team, they touted that they would move us from taxation to production. I dare say that now we are mired even more in taxation compared to even then. No, hold on, Samson. This one is not for you. It's for Eric. I'll come to you on that same point. As a tax expert, what do we do to turn this around? When you look at our businesses, 1D, 1F doesn't seem to be pulling its weight. So how do we reverse the trend and start getting more productive and less taxative, if you like? How do we do that? I'll start with you, Eric.
Thank you very much. You remember in 2017, when this government took over, I remember very well that they dealt away with what we called nuisance taxes. But eventually, they found their way back. The issue, I think that, you see, I've always said that if you want to introduce any new tax, you need to engage the stakeholders. We are talking about the businessmen, the tax experts, all those people that this tax is going to have an effect on. And I believe that when they make an input into it, then, for example, they can agree on the rate of the tax, which, in my opinion, is very, very, very important, because that will determine the level of compliance. I think that we are not getting where we are because we do not prioritize. You see, when you're able to raise money, or you raise the revenue, or you even go in for a loan, it depends on how you use the loan. Okay, and if you use the loan in productive sectors of the economy, what happens is that there is a kind of a cycle where you see growth, development, creation of jobs, and all of that. And so, in my opinion,
So eventually the loan pays for itself many times over.
Very good, yes. And so I think that we also have to look at expenditure. There are some areas that we spend monies on, and sometimes I get sad.
Like which ones?
For example, I would say that the celebration of Independence Day.
I totally agree with you.
Independence Day. Look, if we are to go and have a look at how much money was spent, meanwhile, it's a day that the school children had to march. Meanwhile, there are some school children, as we speak, they're in Ghana. They sit on the floor. They don't even have what do you call it?
Chairs, desks.
Desks.
Whiteboards.
Chalk, ordinary chalk, white chalk, and all that. Furniture. Okay, we have the school feeding program. We are not even able to feed them well. And so I think that we have misplaced our priorities. And if we do not go back to the drawing board as a nation and then look at exactly what we need to do, look at Article 71 holders. Why should somebody who is already in active service and was earning so much money still retire and earn the same, and also, in addition, take what ex-gratia.
So do you agree with the calls that have been made that that should be scrapped? Do you agree with that?
Yes. But you see, for now, our MPs have to also go and say that, yes, if the bill is put before the House, whether they are going to vote for it or vote against it, because at the end of the day, they themselves enjoy it.
Right.
Okay, but I think that is a drain on the meager revenue that we have. And so I would just say that we need to look at our expenditure. I think we spend so much money in areas that we don't really need to, and that is having an effect on the nation's growth and development.
Prof, how do we move from taxation to production? How do we make the dream come true? Hello, Professor Gachi. Please unmute.
Yeah, number one, it has to be a priority agenda for us to follow. If we design the agenda, then we can gradually follow through to move away from taxation and increase our commitment to production. And that we have deviated from that, and we are doing pure taxation issues to manage the economy. But the production aspect is crucial. So I believe we should have an agenda to move forward towards production.
Okay. Samson, how do you think it can be, effected, especially as you are in there in the thick of things, in the engine room? How can it be done?
Well, I think I've heard you talking about when the government began in 2017, the economic management team led by the Vice President was talking on moving us from production and taxation to production. That was the way. That's why we saw the first budget, that showed the abolition of sugar and spare parts, the abolition of the 1% special duty. Just for us to see the mid-year budget when it changed. But the point is, the problem is not the economic team. The problem is the finance minister. I can tell you, whatever is being discussed.
The problem is not the economic management team. The problem is the finance minister. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The won't, they are all under hope. They won't come and tell you they are challenges. But I can tell you without fear or favor.
Why is he the problem?
The problem is the finance minister. As soon as he made up his mind on something, that is it. Nobody stops him, nobody advises him. That's take any because maybe it's only the president who probably will talk to him. And if the president talks to him in here, why is it that when the president met with Gupta before the 2023 budget presentation, remember that Kumasi was shut down, Accra was shut down, the president had to cut off some of his thoughts and he was even going to Eastern region that very week. He had to meet Gupta in the night and promise them heaven and earth. Just for us to see that in 2023 budget, there was an increase of the VAT from 12.5% to 16%, including another 2.5% a layer of tax. So if I'm telling you that it's from the finance minister, you have to understand where I'm coming from. I'm sitting in the engine room as you rightly described it. So I can tell you, if you have a finance minister who does not respect anybody, including his own colleagues ministers, that is where that's why he has brought the country to ground. He has grounded the country and is now running helter-skelter. And you think that to fix the country, he has to introduce 5% sustainability growth levy or whatever. He has to introduce up accessible taxes by 10% to 20%. He has to bring another, I think the oil industry. Because yesterday I listened to our brother David Apple. He was also raising issues on the upstream because they are also complaining. They are also scared. So what it means is that you want to walk in investors to the country and you want to harass the investors. You can't take your cake and have it. And I can tell you from 2022 today, if you know the number of people who have fought up in this country, both Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians, and they are relocated to Africa, which is very close to us. You asked me earlier that look at the tax rate. The neighboring countries are making almost 20%, and we are 12 or something. But are we in the same indicator? In the neighboring countries, if you are borrowing to do business, at what rate are you going to want to do business in those countries? What's the inflation rate? What's the exchange rate? SEPA is still where it used to be since I started my advocacy in 2014, my brother. So we are not in the same condition. Today, did they introduce COVID-19 levy? How did they introduce COVID-19 levy? Did they introduce financial seven levy? The financial seven levy that the government told us that it was user tax has bought it. Came and collapsed banks and other things, and my people are paying it at the point.
Okay,
so if there's any someone that will blame in this country, it should be the arrogance and the disrespect of the finance minister has brought this country to ground.
All right. To conclude the conversation, I just want a straight yes or no answer. You don't even need 5 seconds for this. Imagine all three of you were members of parliament and that today, this motion would be tabled. When it gets to the point of voting, assuming you, the tax expert, Eric Boateng, Samson, you are a business person, Professor Gachi, you're an academic. If all of you were MPs, how would you vote on this matter? Would you vote for these levies and taxes or against them? Samson, you get the first take.
If I would vote for the excise taxes on the tobacco and cigarettes, I would ask them to go back and re-amend it. They'll go back and re-amend it so that to be specific. Then I will vote for yes. But so far as it is in the holistic way, if you voted yes, then tomorrow the minister has the authority to ask the rest of the carbonated things, the water, the other things, and at that time it's too late for you to talk. You can say, I did not vote for this or I did not vote for that.
All right. So according to Samson, he would go for the excise duty as far as tobacco products and cigarettes are concerned, but he would want some amendments made. But for the others, no. For you, Professor Gachi, how would you vote if you were a member of parliament? You have to unmute, Prof.
Yes, I have unmute.
Please go ahead.
I say I will vote no for all of them.
No for all of them.
Because all of them have effect of negatively affecting the business environment, the consumers, and production sector. And I believe enough taxes have been, designed already. We don't need extra taxes of this nature.
All right. Mr. Boateng, you're a tax expert. If you were a member of parliament as well, how would you vote? Yes or no?
I'll vote yes for the excise duty amendment. But, for the growth and sustainability levy, if you look at the amount that it intends to raise, it's bringing in 2,216,000,000 cities. And so that is huge. And so probably I would ask them to go back and then do something about it, because that is going to affect the businesses that we have. But if you look at how much it's bringing, I think it's quite significant. And so I would rather let them go back to the drawing board and probably bring it back before we take a look at it. Thank you.
So interesting vote as members of parliament. Samson semi-yes, Eric Boateng semi-yes, Professor Gachi a clear no. That is how they would have voted on the floor of parliament. But gentlemen, I'm very grateful that he joined the conversation. Samson Asake Awingobet is Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana. We also had Professor John Gachi, Dean of the UCC School of Business, and Eric Amponsah Boateng, a tax expert. I'm going to take a bit of a drink before we come back and interact with you. And you know what I'm going to be drinking? Awake purified drinking water. It's treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you and me better. We have the perfect sizes for all purposes as well. 330 ml, 500 ml, 750 ml. And for those who are heavy drinkers, you can get 1.5 liters. But there's more. Especially if you're thinking of your homes and offices, there are 19-liter jar bottles, ideal for homes and offices. So all you need to do now is stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, everyone, a donation is made to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And for me, I always say that is heartwarming. There are so many of us who need care when it comes to our hearts, and we simply can't afford it. When you purchase Awake, you put something in the kitty for such people. It's a product of Casa Preco Company Limited. For bulk purchases, just call this number, 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. On that note, I'm going to take my sip of Awake, and I mean it. It's Awake drinking water. Maybe I'll bring it on the show so that you see for real. After the break, we get interactive with you.